Joining me now is Democrat from Pennsylvania, Representative Fattah. Congressman Fattah, tell me, as we look at what's going on, the Tea Party saying they're upset, many progressive, they're upset, you're in the progressive caucus. Do you agree with whose camp?
Well, you know, I grew up in the Baptist church, and you've been to my home church, and the bottom line is that what Solomon said when they said, well, we're going to cut the baby in half, then it became clear about who was really the legitimate parent for this child, right? What we have is we got an inside caper going on here, Rev. The Republicans, and you look at the testimony from Reagan's budget secretary, Treasury Secretary, and Bush's Treasury Secretary. They ran up these debts and deficits. Then they said, oh, no new taxes. In fact, let's give the wealthy their money back. And then they said, okay, now we're going to push you up to this default edge. We are the wealthiest country in the world. Right. And we have a responsibility to pay our bills. This is a deal in which we have two choices. We can either default tomorrow at 12 midnight, which would hurt all of our citizens in very severe ways, or we can pass this proposal. Well, they say, hey, there's some good in the proposal and some bad. You know, it's like a stew. You know, there's a lot of stuff in there. But when you actually get through some of the details, and I don't think the White House will go through it all until tomorrow, but when you find out that the spending cuts don't kick into place until 2013, which is the same year that the Bush tax cuts expire. Well,
wait a minute. Let's go slow on that, because I think we need to understand that the spending cuts do not kick in until 2013, the same year that the Bush cuts expire, which means there'll be more revenue then.
In December of 2012, the Bush tax cuts expire. You go into 13. The Congress will be faced with either severe cuts in defense. There's over $1 trillion of potential cuts in defense, $400 billion now, and $540 billion if they can't come to some settlement about what might get cut or what new revenues might get raised.
Right.
So I think when we see the wisdom of this great young president in the afterglow of this deal, see, in the aftermath, it might look a little dusty right now. But let's get down to some of the details. In this upcoming year, we're going to be able to do more to respond to some of the challenges our people face. We got 130 million people going to work. We can't afford in our country to default, have our economy fall. You know, we would be looking in the Depression, 1 out of 4 didn't have a job. We need millions of new jobs, but we don't want to damage the 130 million people who are going to work every day. We want to find jobs for the millions who still need them.
Well, jobs is definitely something I hope we get back to. I was glad to hear the White House say that. But let me ask you this. When you raise the points that you're raising, which is clearly not how this came out last night when we first started hearing it, is this a question of optics? Are we not understanding the whole view here? Are we only getting certain parts of the plan? Because you seem to feel like there's more wisdom in the plan than some of the others in your own progressive caucus have said.
Well, look, you just got to look at the facts here. Now, here you go. These first group of cuts don't take place until 2013, which is when the Bush tax cuts expire at the end of 2012. So there'll be new revenue and there'll be cuts. Now, we either can go through with the cuts or we can keep those new revenues. That's the reality of this. In this bill, this is a bill that's going to allow the government to spend over $50 trillion over the next 10 years, cutting 2.5. That's with a maybe unless the new committee decides no new revenue. And unless some new president or our existing president were to decide to reinstitute these very unwise, wealthy tax cuts for the top 2%. So you have to look at the entire package. In this package, we're guaranteeing Pell Grants, billions of dollars so that young people can go to school. The Tea Party wanted to walk away from Boehner because they said, how could you guarantee Pell Grants for kids to go to school?
Pell Grants are guaranteed here, and Social Security and Medicare is off the table, can't be touched, and only we can deal with the providers in Medicaid. Interesting view from you as a progressive. But Congressman, I'm going to have to go, and I know you're voting tonight.
I know you got to go. Wait till the smoke clears and look at the details tomorrow. I'll be glad to share with anybody some of the details we're going to put up on my website.
Well, I'm going to wait for the smoke to clear. I just don't want to be on fire when the room gets
We're not going to supplant the greatest generation and become the default generation. We're going to move forward with the president's agenda.
Congressman Fattah, thank you for your time this evening. Ahead, this